we're back to Robert. Before we begin, first of all, thank you so much for making time for us. Also, a big thank you to your wife, Regina. She's such a listener and a lover of Nation FM. I know she's always calling in, so I hope she can call in as well today. Regina, it'd be nice to hear your voice on TV as well. But it's good to have you in studio, Robert. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and about a day in the life of Robert pre-February 2024, before, all of this.
For sure, you've heard my name. Robert Idewa is my name. Systems engineer. I just work in a private organization here in Nairobi.
Systems nini?
Systems engineer.
Yeah,
oh, systems. Okay, meskia systems. I was like, that's a new type. So, yes.
So systems engineer. I deal with the systems. I started off from diploma in telecommunication. Went on to do a degree in BBIT. Now that is the job that I do. And part of my work, I'm a maintenance engineer, networks and stuff. So I've traveled the entire country, like all the counties, because we normally do a project for this indirectly for the government. So I've had the pleasure of actually also going to the northeastern region, the coastal region. And so those are the areas that I used to maintain, places where the weather is very extreme. You actually know the temperatures associated with Mandera, Wajir, the coastal region. So that is the job that I used to do, and I'm this very tough guy. That is what people know me for. I'm very tough when it comes to even doing the job that I do. I do my job really well, and I'm just a very strong person prior to the incident.
Prior to the incident.
A family guy as well. They call me Father Abraham, where I come from. I don't have many kids, only 3.
I was about to ask why.
I think because of the economy.
Okay.
But basically, that is. And I love my kids. I love. You come to the estate, a lot of kids, very known. Even to the smallest kids, they actually know who I am. They know my children. So I'm that. I used to be that jovial. I'm still jovial, but my life changed.
A different type, a different life, maybe a different jovial. It's jovial despite what's happening. I want to go back to February 2024. I know you were not at the initial scene, right? You were a well-wisher, but walk me through. Are you at home? Are you at work, coming home, and then you hear an explosion? What happens? Just walk me through the day, the night actually.
I remember very well. Prior to that day, 1st February. There was a project I was working on, so I was putting my best to delivering some documentation that I was to do. So I translated like the previous 2 nights, and that day I decided that because I've done this for quite a while, let me today just rest. So when we were going to bed, we normally have these family prayers. We did our prayers, and then we went to bed. So and then like about 20 minutes later, that was about, because we went to bed at around 10:40, and at around 11 o'clock, we had now those bangs. And I didn't think that it was actually something big, unless like a brother of mine now knocked my door and was like, have you heard those bangs? And I was like, these are just kawaida things. Maybe these, the proverbial Sani, the ones that come to demolish. So we were like, it's just Sani doing the demolition, maybe at the ghetto, because there was a time they had been given a notice.
I see.
So then it persisted, and we were like, let's just peep through the window. So peeping through the window, you could actually see like a very huge fire, and we were like, what could that be? For someone who didn't know that we had a gas plant near us, trust me, you are like, this could be an electrical fault. And we have a transformer next to our gate. So first thing to do is just switch all the lights, and then now we go to the gate, try to ask the askaris at the gate whether they can turn off also the transformer. There's a way that you can actually separate the lines. But luckily we have Kenya Power staff at the estate.
In the estate.
So he was able to actually go there and actually do the needful. Okay. So we were like, then everything is set. That is the time I walked out. I walked out with my brother-in-law, and I made sure that Regina and the kids were back in the house, and I told them not to come out until we've returned, to just go see what is happening. But on getting to the gate, you could hear the voices, the noise, people knocking at the gate and asking us to let them in, asking the askaris to let them in. So now that is what caught our attention, other than finishing on the transformer issue and asking them to actually try and switch off the power in every block, because you have like 22 blocks in the estate. So we decided now, let's just see what is happening out there. On opening the gate, trust me, whatever we saw, there's no way you could leave that place without seeing how you could assist. So we talked to the askaris, we asked them, just let these people in, let them store their things. Those who are using this as a shortcut, because we have like 2 gates at the back and at the front, let them just go through. No one can take anything at this time. Kindly just let them use this place as an escape.
Just an escape. Who are these people?
The Mradi, we are all from Mradi, but they said that I'm living in is a bit gated. So them, they're living out there. Maybe some shanties, though we still have some informal settlements, and also we still have some permanent buildings out there. So all of them, because everyone was like vacating.
Right.
People are trying to salvage whatever they can salvage. Because for them, by that time, I think it was about like 20 minutes into the fire. But now, by the time as we arrived there, there were already people who are burnt. You can actually see people without skin. And we're like, then some of us who maybe are blessed with cars, we can use those cars to take them to Mama Lucy, the nearest facility for the government. You know, that's the one that you can easily take a person once they're having an issue and you don't have whether they have insurance or anything. So you were at that process before the explosion happened.
You were taking them to Mama Lucy.
We were to take them to Mama
You were
Lucy.
to take them.
So
Yeah,
now
you're
basically rescuing them, and then an explosion happened.
An explosion happened because when the explosion happened, I was just from calling Red Cross.
Yeah.
I just ended the call because that madam at the Red Cross told me that are you at the scene? And I was like, yeah, I'm here at the scene. Just run from there. And I was like, why? Because I think a lot of people had already called in. But it was too late because there are people who are sitting there. We've assured them that we are taking you to hospital. You're just getting ready, and then we'll go.
So you land the call, and then there's an explosion.
The explosion happened, and when it happened, it threw everyone down, and you're just down there. You have in your hands, like it was. It was really, and then at that moment, it was a near-death experience. So you're like even having these flashes of your children. You're like you think you're going. But now that zeal to want to leave is what like now kept me alive. And when people started running, now I could run. I lost my phone. I think it even got burnt. And then on running, along my way, I also had to pick up some 6-month-old baby, run with him, because I didn't use the gate, the immediate gate, because I thought it was a transformer which had exploded. Still up to that time, I didn't know that
You still don't know what's going on.
That it's the gas. Because you were asking those people, what is happening there? They're like, there are some gas, this gas which is exploding, and you are like, maybe the houses which have caught fire and they have these gas cylinders, they're the ones which are exploding. And then for us, we used to think that whatever was there was just a parking, because the gate was, most of the time the gate was closed.
Right.
You couldn't see the gate
What's
open
inside?
and see. And then for us in the state, somebody who wakes up in the morning, goes to work, and in the evening, and it's actually at the back. You can say actually the back
You're
gate.
not investigating every gate to go and see.
Exactly, to
what's
see
inside.
what is inside. So it was very unfortunate that it had to happen. I thank God I found the father to the child that I was carrying. At least I gave back the child. At that time, I think that my scars were not that much. I didn't know that I had actually been burnt that much. It's only at the back of my head where I was feeling like actually there's something going wrong here. Either I've been burnt or something. But if you touch, there's nothing, but you are feeling something burning inside. So I couldn't like actually assess how the damage, the harm. So until when I got home, went to 4th floor, took my car keys, and then when I was coming down, I met my sister-in-law, and now she's the one who's actually told me that we've been looking for you. I asked him, what about your brother? Where is he? Then my sister-in-law was like, we've already found him, because I was really, because this is somebody that I've known for quite a long time, and then I was with him as the last person, and then maybe something wrong has happened to them.
Right.
So that's when they got to take us now to. There was a commotion in the estate, but now it's then that they had to take us to a nearby hospital, a private hospital.
Yeah. What were the next few days like for you?
It was tricky. I had to spend a whole month in the hospital, the entire month of February. And also on that day, after I go to the hospital, the process of getting the skin off, because they have to take it off. At that time, it had swollen. you've never seen anyone who's been burnt to that extent. You're being when and then there's this thing that the nurses, I don't know whether they were taught in school, but there's this perception that somebody who's speaking a lot, they're not hurt as the one who's silent. So my brother-in-law was very silent, and that is his nature.
Yeah.
And myself, so they had to first start on him, and then when they got to me, were like, but you've really been hurt. But why? Exactly. So I was like, that is just my nature. Telling them that I'm having some burns here, they pour some normal saline on my head, and they're like, you'll be okay. Because they see there's nothing visible, so they don't know how serious it is.
At this point, do you know how hurt you are?
Yeah, not that much.
Or are you still just feeling, something at the back of your head?
I think when I came to the realization, that's when I got some. They were calling it panic attack, which I didn't believe it was panic attack. I told them that I've never panicked in my life.
Right back to medical gaslighting, which we were talking about yesterday. They were calling it a panic attack.
A panic attack. So I was like, I've never panicked in my entire life, knowing the person that I am. So, but I think maybe they were right, because the entire skin up to here was being removed. Right. They've removed here, from here to also this other place at the back, and also my feet. And I was like, I just, my heart started racing, and I was like,
so you realize now that
I don't think I'll ever get
entire arm.
I'll ever get back.
And this other arm and your back.
And my back.
Your legs are also
my legs. Now here, the only thing that it's only me was feeling.
You only know the back of your
head. Exactly.
And nothing else.
Yeah, but I think I only got a bit of energy when I saw another lady was badly injured, to an extent that the drip was being put on her neck. That's where I knew that I'm not badly off in as much as I'm on this way. But at that time, I was already having this oxygen mask on my nose.
That month in the hospital, what does that recovery look like? Even recovery is later, treatment into recovery. What did that month look like? And also, do you have private insurance? Were you able to, take care of that? Because you ideally, guys were being taken to Mama Lucy, but I know they were already overwhelmed at some point. But go on.
I think this is where I also have to thank my employer for providing such a good medical insurance. And also thank the medical insurance, because they never, it was even the hospital saw the insurance that I used to have, and they were like, how asumbuangi? You get, so I was admitted. At least those are the blessings that I count, because I know there are people who didn't have this medical cover that I had. But that medical cover is one thing, because it will get you discharged by the time that you've been attended through the entire month and everything, or however, whichever amount that they get to, as long as it's within the limits, they'll get it sorted. But now, I think we'll get there. But now the discharge from the hospital now is when you'll have to get into your pocket.
We'll get deeper into that story, but let's take a break. We're speaking with Robert Idewa Omuse. He's a systems engineer. He lived in Embakasi. On the night of this explosion in Muradi, he was there, and like he's told us, he was among the first responders to what was going on until the explosion happened, and he became a victim. Then he found himself in hospital. Now, we want to talk about this because we are coming back. It's a year since this happened. What has gone on since then?
Of course, we're figuring out how to make sure that we hold each other accountable as well for the things that happen that we don't talk about, or sweep under the rug, or we forget. And that's why we are calling it Lest We Forget. Lest we forget that we lost 11 lives to a fire in Embakasi last year. Over 300 people were injured, countless others displaced. And of course, we are in studio with Robert Idewa, who is a survivor of the blast, who went in with the very best of intentions as a first responder, trying to get people out, trying to pull people out. And of course, a second explosion happened, and he ended up getting hurt in the mix as well. But we want to see others on the ground, hear from them as well, and see also what state agencies and their response look like. Of course, we'll have a look at some clips from people who were at the Embakasi fire and what they saw, what they heard. There was the question of, is there a hissing noise? Is there a smell? Is there a commotion? Is there an organized response? But let's have a look, Jonte, at those clips.
Serikali ya kaunti ya Nairobi wajaribu tu tafadhali kukua na haraka kidogo juu imeteke karibu 1 hour ndio wafike.
Watu ni wamechomeka. Watu ni wagonjwa. But ile jambo naweza sema ni kwamba serikali isiruhusu vitu kama hizi. Because hii ni tayari ni kitu ambayo tulikuwa tunatarajia kwamba itatokezea. Because hauwezi kuwa unafanya biashara ya gas na katikati ya wananchi ambapo wanaishi. Yeah. Because kuna wakati April ilikuja ikafunga hizi vitu. April ilifunga na sasa sijui hata kama ni storage watu wanaweka hapo hawangeweka.
Hii plot ni yangu. Mimi ndio naisimamia hapa. I think ile mali imeharibika hapa inaweza kuwa kitu kama almost 4 to 5 million. Because store iko na vitu mingi sana ya kuhamizi hii vitu yote. Inaweza kuwa more than 5 million.
Thank you so much, of course, for sending in 0112-500-400. And of course, we're back in conversation with Robert. Before we even get into anything else, on YouTube, so many people are sending you love. They just want you to know that they see you, they hear you, and that they are walking this journey with you as far as accountability is concerned. Mama J says, this is super scary. Hugs to him and to all the victims. I also see Horace Wandera saying, Robert, you are God sent. More blessings on your way. I see Catherine Atiang saying, we thank God for this far. It was not easy, but all shall be well. I thank you so much for taking the time to come and share this story. We're talking about basically the what next, right? You went back home, you ended up going to the hospital, then begins this process of recovery, not even realizing the extent of your burns, and the blessing of having, private insurance and an employer who was, paying that faithfully. And I think that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And in the next hour, we'll talk about how for so many others, that was not the case. But there's so many effects that aren't seen, like you said. So you go to hospital, you get discharged, but that's just the beginning. You've had to undergo so much, so many other surgeries, therapies. You were in surgery earlier this month. Please tell us more about it. Not earlier this month, sorry, earlier in the year. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, maybe also before I proceed with that,
yes.
Thank you for having me as the first guest for Lest We Forget. I've just realized that, asante sana.
Okay.
So after we were discharged from hospital, I also have to thank the nurses, because that is when I came to, it's not that I don't appreciate what they do, but I came to appreciate the work that the nurses normally do, and also the doctors, because it was really tricky. You couldn't do anything for yourself, but they were there to assist you from things that I'm afraid to even mention here in media. But they did a lot for us. So life after that, now you're at home, you've gotten back home. You have to also be going for the regular dressings now, because you are able to walk. You're struggling a bit, but you can walk. And also thank God for the support system that I had, because if it were not for that, then I think I could have even maybe like run mad or something, because you're there, your wife has been there with you at hospital, also the employer were very kind to her, because they gave her a whole month to just take care of me at hospital, and went to an extent of even coming to visit me. So what I can say is it was really tough for us, only that I was still in that environment. It's weird, but I was still in that environment, and to me, being in that environment was motivating me in a sense that at least I was in a position to see that I'm not the only one who's suffering.
Right.
There are other people who are suffering. I could see people with bandages when I'm going for dressings. So, in as much as it was really tough, but the fact that I was within the same environment and I was having people who were there for me, I remember I had this pressure to actually relocate from that place. And my dad told me that, are you sure that wherever you're going is heaven?
Wow.
How sure you were, when you were moving there, did you know that there was that plant there? So there's no need for you stressing yourself, just deal with the healing first.
And you're still there?
Yeah, and I'm still there up to today. A number of us, because in the estate we were injured, about like 50 of us, because the fire after the explosion, it forced open the gate, and then covered like the driveway, because there are blocks on either sides, 12 on one side, 10 on the other side, and then at the center it's a driveway. So 3/4 of it was covered by fire, or rather hot air, because it's actually not even fire that burnt us. It was just hot air. Because if you had clothes on, you were being burnt according to what you're putting on.
Wow.
Myself, I had a sleeveless.
Okay.
So that is why I was burnt up to here. And then here, when you're thrown down, I think the trouser maybe went up a bit, so that's where around the foot was being burnt. You can imagine for the ladies, the ones that maybe came out and they were
just in a dress.
Or a skirt.
Night dress
So any exposed
yeah,
parts.
so the calf area, you can imagine for a lady how traumatizing that is. So I was there. You get to see some other people now within the Mradi area who are burnt more than you are. I can't say that it was encouraging to see someone who's burnt more than you, but you're like, I think I'm even supposed to be assisting this person because I think I'm better off.
But that's just because that's your nature, Robert. I mean, that's what we're establishing this morning, that you want to help.
Yeah.
Even when you are going through whatever you're going through and you see somebody else, you're thinking, this one needs my help more than I need my own help. And that's the nature of the person that you are, which is why people are celebrating you so much. Robert is saying, John Kagwanja is saying Robert is a hero. He's a gentleman, a great Kenyan, and we all agree on that. David Tirop, he was a decent human being and a philanthropist. And everybody's saying thank you. Thank you because this is who you are. How many months did you stay in hospital?
A whole month. And now the post hospitalization care, should I put it that way?
Yep.
Yes.
And now after being discharged, you know, it has taken me up to, I was going for dressing up to, when was it? Up to August.
6 months.
For 6 months, just post-hospitalization. And not only for me, for most of the people there.
Right.
You could see a lot of people walking around with bandages, even members from our 43rd tribe, if I can put it that way, who live around. Everyone, like over tens of people, I think even to a tune of 100. 3 months later, people still have bandages. And yet when you're going to hospital, you thought that maybe in 3 weeks you'll be okay. And even your skin will you'll be back to normal. You need to know that you'll be having scars like this.
Right.
And even this one is not as serious because it was even serious before I went for plastic.
Right.
So now getting to my life after hospital, I was really focused because I had this. My wife is a psychologist, so even on my mental health issues, at least she was there. She was able to encourage me to even go for counseling, something that I had never imagined myself going for, because we used to think that maybe it's for, we call them softies. Yeah. I'm a strong man. I don't need counseling. I don't even dream about this thing. Why should I go for counseling? And then the counselor I met was telling me, you're the kind of people that are supposed to come for counseling, because this is meant for those people who think they don't need counseling.
Express themselves.
Yeah, who don't think it's affecting them.
Right.
So you can imagine that was the dressing, the physiotherapy, the counseling.
Psychosocial support.
Psychosocial support. I can also thank God for that, because myself, at least I had that
family
privilege of having the counseling. But for the rest of the rest of the victims, they didn't have this privilege. You see, some organizations took about 2 weeks, and then I don't fault them for that, because that is the best they could offer, because they were not even government institutions. Yeah. They came, offered the service for like about 2 weeks to maybe to, I don't know whether I can mention the names, but like St. John Ambulance, they were there for like a whole month. Yep. You can see they really tried.
Did the best they could.
Riara for 2 weeks, but they were focused on children.
Yeah. Yes. Which was an important thing. So let's talk about that. Okay. So I'm sure, Robert, because of the person that you are, you have engaged with many of the other victims, and you've also engaged with how, when you were going through this care in a private facility using private insurance, how they were going through the care. From what you hear from the people that you speak to, those that went to public hospitals and those that also went to other private hospitals, what kind of support did they receive from the government, from the state, national government and county government? What kind of support did you see or did you hear that they were receiving?
Okay, maybe to start from myself, I didn't receive any support from the government. I didn't receive any. There were
any
funds
support,
that were being dispersed to people. I didn't receive anything.
Not a call,
not even a call. Oh, maybe a visit by the DCI to just come get a photo of me from the hospital, which actually gave me hopes, because I was like, maybe
you're on the list.
Maybe we'll be. I didn't do this. I never did this to be compensated, but maybe we'll be compensated for these damages. But that is the only thing maybe from the government, if I have to mention the government. Right. But for the ones that you said I talked to from out there in Mradi, I remember with a lady friend of mine. also a victim. We met these two guys from Radi, and they were telling us how they were treated very well at KUTRH. Whether they did a good job, I heard that at KUTRH. But now they were, you cannot stay until I think even you're fully healed.
Right.
They have to let you go at some point.
Yes.
So they were let go with a bit of ointment. I think like 2 packets of this ointment called Mebosca. It's very expensive. They were given, but you are sure that they'll just use for maybe a maximum of 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then after that, they'll have to get to their pockets, because there's no one who's told me that after being discharged, they were able to go back to the hospital and now be treated, the outpatient treatment for free, for free. The way they were discharged for free, because they never paid any bill, and they were very happy for that. That imagine where could I get up to 2 million? Where could I get this amount of money? But you know what you are telling them? Imagine you should not be happy, because if the government,
at least we got support for the first 2 weeks.
Exactly.
But then after that, they go through months.
You cannot work. You are the breadwinner. You cannot work. Your wife maybe is a housewife. There's no way you can work. So don't be happy that these people paid the bill for you. Maybe just be thankful for now. But imagine you need these people to compensate you so that at least you can get back to where you are before this tragedy
did not happen. Let's talk about levels of compensation, right? So the first one we are saying is the support, that immediately that go to a public facility and you get treated. I can imagine those that went to Mama Lucy as well.
Yeah.
They were not asked to pay a bill in that initial hospitalization. Those that went now into the referral hospital, KUTRH, it's called Kutra. They also were not asked to pay. Okay.
KNH as well.
And KNH were not asked to pay.
Embakasi
when they went back home.
Embakasi Health Center as well.
So several of those county and national facilities did not charge them a bill.
Yeah, they didn't charge.
When they went back home, and some of them had, found that their homes had been burnt and demolished, where did they go to? Did they get any support in relocation?
So I think if you went to hospital and you left your wife at home, the area MP was giving some bit of, I don't know whether to call it a stipend or just some small cash. I can't call it small. I don't look down on the amount, but at least something to
Just
get
for
them started,
context,
to get them
what's
to
the constituency.
Embakasi East.
Okay.
Embakasi East. So they were able at least to get a house nearby. And also there are some 2 organizations, Kenya Red Cross, Children Welfare, that came and gave us some aid. I benefited in one that I cannot lie, Children Welfare. They gave us some aid. Others were giving even like things like mattresses and stuff. So at least it was able to get them started. Because you can imagine, like maybe a lady I talked to was given 20,000 shillings, was sent for 20,000 shillings. So she had to get a house. With that house, the rates there, you cannot get a house for less than 5,000. Just because all the informal settlement had been banned. So you had to go to this townhouse that about 5,000 shillings and beyond.
Above,
So and we have to pay, how Nairobi operates, at least one month deposit, that and also that one. And now your husband is hospitalized at KUTRH, where you have to be commuting to that place every other time. You see, every other time. We didn't have volunteers also to donate blood. Others said they had to part money to also pay for
blood transfusion,
blood donors to go to KUTRH to be able to donate blood for their spouses. So if you didn't have someone back at home, trust me, you're going back to nothing.
You're starting at zero.
And then most of them that were in the hospital, they didn't have their phones, and maybe the reason also why I missed the money, I'm not asking for it right now, but the reason why I missed the money, I didn't have the phone there, and my wife is the one who had registered me with the social workers and put her phone number there, so maybe they couldn't send it to someone that they didn't see the
so
name
they could not correlate. Was there any creation of a list, let's say by the county officials, by the national government officers, the chief? Like, was there a proper list of these are the victims of Mradi? These are the ones in hospital, these are the ones in Kutra, these are the ones at Mama Lucy, KNH, and so on. This is where they were living, these ones need relocation. Was there such, to the best of your knowledge?
To the best of my knowledge, I can say there wasn't such a list, because I established that when I was telling my fellow victims that I was visited by the DCI, others were like, when did they come? So how else could they have known that there was someone there? Maybe if they came up with a list after we were going for the, this P3, you have to get your statement there recorded and everything. Maybe if they they came up with a list after that. But just prior to that, there's no list. The list that we had was based on these social workers and the community health promoters, CHPs. They're the ones who are even going door to door, to even check on the patients when they were
recovering.
So that happened.
That happened outside there, not within the state that I live in.
Yeah, it's been a year now. From as far as you're concerned, most people are still trying to start over. Would you say that? Most of the people who that's there. So would you say a lot of them still haven't been able to go to work, live somewhere? What's the state of those who were affected like you? And is there something that you're trying to do to pursue some kind of compensation or answers?
Thank you very much, Janet. I was really waiting for that question. People are really struggling. That is the truth of the matter. People are really struggling. People lost their jobs. Maybe some employers, you cannot also blame them, but they were able maybe to sustain you for just a month. But for you to go missing for another 5 months, I think it was hard for them. So they had to let you go. People had to take pay cuts. People had to relocate from Nairobi back to their rural homes. In one of the media houses, it was covered. There was actually a feature on that. People had to relocate because you're there, you are the breadwinner. There's no way you can stay in Nairobi and you're not generating any income. So actually people are really struggling. And that's why even for us, as part of psychosocial support, as Latif was putting it, we had even to come up with these groups at least to see what can we do to help each other. You see, if you're given aid and whatever you're given is not, some things you don't need them. Like you're being given a mattress, your house was not burnt. Why don't you take that mattress to somebody out there? Yes, they were given 2 mattresses as you. They're about, I don't know whether it's 3-inch mattress, 3x6. At least take it to someone there who needs it a lot because everything they had got burnt. You know, we were affected differently. There were those who lost property. There were those whose businesses were burnt. You can imagine the business that has kept you in Nairobi.
Right.
So it's the one that the proceeds are the one that you're using to pay for your children's school fees, even for your own sustenance. You've lost that.
Sorry, sorry to interrupt you.
Sorry.
From a legal perspective as well, has anyone contacted you? Are you part of this witness list? I know there was 2 gentlemen who are standing trial for manslaughter, right? And they said there'll be over 200 witnesses coming to the stand to talk about their experiences. Are you among those? Do you know someone who's among those? Have you been notified of what the legal proceedings are, what's going on? And then back to the recourse. Are you seeking any recourse, whether it's compensation, whether it's legal redress in one way or the other?
For the I think that's a criminal case, the one you started with.
Yes.
For the criminal case, unless they are yet to call us, but we all submitted our P3 forms. We all also gave our statements. So maybe they are still in the process of doing that. But I've not heard from the group that I'm in anyone who's been contacted.
Asked to be a witness.
Exactly.
Okay. They said they had about 200 witnesses ready to testify. What about getting financial compensation? Perhaps filing a lawsuit? I know that was something that was floated around in the group.
Yeah, so we have this legal team that we contacted and were very willing to work with us. And they're working on something that is work in progress. Okay. I can assure you that we'll actually be filing a case. That's
good to know. So you don't want to speak about it? It's an ongoing thing?
Yeah, it's an ongoing thing.
All right. For the follow-up then would be a year later, has the government come to check in to see what's happening with the people of Mradi as a whole, with the first responders, with those who lost property? Has there been any other follow-up aside from, I think part of the government response was, you know what, go home without a hospital bill. Beyond that, and the DCI coming and taking your picture and you going and putting your, writing a P3 and signing it. Has there been anything else from government as far as the response is concerned?
I think you can even guess what the answer is. Sincerely, there has been nothing. Yeah. Even before coming to this show, I talked to the social worker, and then just to confirm whether them on their end, from also the groups that they are in, exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm the one who's behind the news.
Right.
But I've been at home for the entire time. I've not traveled up country the entire last year up to now, because I cannot travel actually because of the situation that I'm in.
Right.
It's very uncomfortable, the itching and everything, especially when you go to some other environments.
Right.
So
and that was
there's nothing.
a big part of your work was going to these hot, humid places, like you said.
Exactly.
What does that mean for your work now?
Still, I'll go to my employer. they've been very kind. You can imagine staying out of employment for an entire 5 months.
Right.
You're receiving salary, full salary. That is something that I'm very grateful for. But also maybe to encourage people out there. Also, when you're working, just do your best. So it's not that maybe those who are laid off are not doing their best, but I cannot. There's no way I can go to those areas that I used to man, to the northeastern areas. They've missed me a lot. But they normally keep calling me.
You,
Yes, I have other colleagues. Though you have a lean team who normally visit the places, but they are like, where did Idewa go to? So it's changed my life a bit, and my work for me to also make extra cash.
Right.
Imagine, from the per diems that you normally receive. So that per diem was cut off completely, and so with that, some other projects that you do also have to stall.
Right.
What's your healing going to be like, Robert? What's the healing journey like when you feel like you're going to make a full recovery, if I can ask that?
I think I'll just have to call it, yes, a full recovery, but there's no way we'll ever get to where you were before. But my healing process has been really slow and challenging, because at first I thought that I was really okay when all the wounds had closed and everything, until wounds started appearing again, where it had already healed, and I was like, what is this? Until I started feeling this contracture, despite going for physio.
Yeah.
So I was again devastated, but thank God I had undergone counseling, so I could take it. So to want to know what can I do, I have this cousin at Kenyatta Hospital who advised me to go see now a plastic surgeon. And even where my wife works, I was able also to be introduced to a plastic surgeon who told me that the only way you'll be okay is not through the occupational therapy that you're undergoing, it's not through the physiotherapy that you're undergoing, in as much as they help me a bit, especially with my movements, but you have to go for plastic surgery.
Indeed.
And also for contracture release.
Right.
Robert, if you don't mind, stay for a bit longer.
Yeah.
And we continue this conversation. Because after we take this break, we want to come back and now look at what's our disaster response like in this country. What do we know? What do we have? We have Robert here who has a personal experience of disaster response and support from government after disasters. Robert Idewa is a victim of last year's Mradi gas explosion. And your brother Steve says, continue being strong, small bro. Indeed, the incident has changed everything, considering you're a big heart for humanity. He says he's encouraging you. Keep doing that. Yvonne Musyoki says, it's 1 year and we're still fighting for recovery mentally and physically. Bramwell Simiyu, thanks for creating awareness about fire safety and emergency response. So many of the fixers who are joining us online on YouTube, even on Facebook, on X, on TikTok, they are sending this message, and somebody says we need a national emergency response unit with paramilitary, paramedics, and firefighting training. All of you, we see you, we read you, appreciate you. Please continue. How would you rate Kenya's disaster response mechanism? How can we fix it? Fixing the nation, one conversation at a time. It's about 3 minutes after 8. Let's take this quick break. We come back, and Robert will not be going. We'll continue the conversation. Fixing the nation, one conversation at a time. Thank you very much for keeping it here on NTV, on Nation FM, and all our digital platforms. It's Eric Latif, Janet Bogua, and Mariam Bishar. Just to recap our news fix, and that's catching up with what's happening across the globe. We have been talking to you about the announcement of the death of His Highness the Aga Khan, the spiritual leader of the Ismaili Muslims. And we have a message of condolence from President William Ruto, who has sent a message of condolence through X and says, we are saddened by the passing of the Aga Khan, the spiritual leader of the Ismaili Muslims. He was an extraordinary leader who went beyond what seemed impossible to help the vulnerable through his charities in hospitals and schools. And the president, of course, sending his message of condolence. Earlier, we also saw a message of condolence from the UN Secretary General, and he also sent a condolence and eulogized His Highness the Aga Khan as somebody who had an impact across very many communities in Africa, in Asia, and around the world.
There's also a story coming out that the US has frozen funding, again, for the security mission tackling Haiti's gangs. Uncertainty is surrounding the Kenya-led security mission in Haiti after The U.S. froze more than $13 million in funding for an international security force helping fight the armed gangs. Haiti has been pushing for the MSS to be transformed into a fully UN-backed peace mission in order to guarantee funding. Now, we have about 600 police officers in Haiti right now. And of course, our former deputy IG, that is Noor Gabo, was appointed the Consul General to Port-au-Prince in Haiti. We're likely to see the boys come back as a result. I don't think they would stay there without funding, so I'm thinking it's a safe guess to say we'll see them
So
back.
the US was one of the big contributors to the funding, but also it's an international mission with other countries also contributing. Let's see how this unfolds, because it's a UN mission. It's just that the biggest funder and the biggest promoter of it is the US.
Yes.
So we'll watch as this unfolds, and that's why we have Newsfix. Janet.
Yes. Are we historianing?
Yeah. Our conversation continues with Robert Idewa, who was in the Mradi fire incident last year. As a result of it, he suffered several burns. He was hospitalized for a month. He went through all this other post-hospitalization therapy for 6 months, but he's still undergoing care. And it's a heavy burden, not just for him, but for many others. And Robert, thank you very much for staying here. So Janet is going just to tease you a little bit. And this is just looking back at, there are some things that people say, and then they become quotable quotes. Yes. In future, people are like, Robert said this on the 4th of February while at Nation FM. Who said that?
Robert said that. So Robert, what I'll do is I'll give you 1 or 2 hints of who this person is, then I'll read you the quote, and then you guess. So what is a hint? He is known as an opposition leader and has been one for decades, or considered one for a long time.
I may smile.
So maybe I'll leave it at that. Do the quote.
In which country?
No, but if I bring it,
okay.
East Africa. In East Africa. Okay. I'll read the quote, then you can let me know. So this is the quote. We shall go to the ballot, and if we lose, we will congratulate the winner. But if we win, we will ask the winner to congratulate us. Who said that?
Because he's been an opposition leader for, I'll just say, Rao.
Yes. You were still trying to check if it's him or not.
Okay, he's the only one in East Africa, rather in Africa, who's been opposition leader for long.
Right. Yeah, that's correct.
The words again?
We shall go to the ballot, and if we lose, we will congratulate the winner. But if we win, we will ask the winner to congratulate us.
What do you think of that, Robert?
We will ask the winners to congratulate us.
Yes.
That's where the irony is.
That part.
Yeah.
But I don't know if... Hey, I was about to say something. Let me just leave it at that. I was about to say, does he know the feeling of... Anyway.
Intrusive thoughts.
Right, intrusive thoughts. Let them come through. But we're still in conversation with Robert. We are saying, lest we forget that we lost 11 lives to a fire in Embakasi last year, that over 300 people were injured, countless others displaced. And we need to keep the conversation going. We need justice. We need accountability. We asked Robert just before the break what the response has been like, who has reached out, where we are in terms of legal proceedings and all of that. But I want to see the responses from some of our big duty bearers. Jonte, I know we have clips of what the governor was saying on the ground at the time, the area MP as well. Let's play them and have a look at Sakaja's statements on ground at the Embakasi fire.
Kote Nairobi, we know where such operations should be. List imepatikana leo, nazifunga zote ambazo ziko kwa maestri za watu. Zote zinafungwa leo. Sawa sawa? Because life is more important than money. Kazi inafanyika usiku, gasi inaekwa, tunaangalia, tunaficha. Na wananchi, mimi nawaomba, tukiona kitu ambayo haendelei mzuri, tuwe tunasema. Mnasemanga? Hawasikizi? Sasa watasikiza.
All right, that was the governor, that is Johnson Sakaja. Speaking about the response and saying, you know what, every gas depot in residential areas, we're dealing with it, we're closing it. You said something very interesting earlier, which is that you didn't even know there was a gas depot around you because it was hidden, right? Yes. It was operating without a license. And I know across the country, there's so many others. But as far as our investigations are concerned and our follow-through and our disaster management, we always seem to make big proclamations and then we forget. Are there any big promises that were made to you, to the people that, you know, to your neighbors as well, that you've been asking yourself, okay, it's been a year, was this a joke? Especially if they were time-bound.
The promises were made, not directly to some of us, but promises were made now that I've been in touch with also the social worker.
Yes.
They were being told that they'll be constructed for houses, even they'll be assisted to those who lost their businesses, the businesses were burnt down. They were also to be assisted in building the shops. Because I remember coming back from hospital, I was like, you mean is it the city council which is building this? They're like, no, we are the ones doing this. People are just donating some nails, some iron sheets, helping us to get back to where we were before. So
who made the promises
yes.
It must have been through the city council, or rather just the government in general, because for them to be told that they'll be built for houses, these are not private institutions. You know, because one thing I can tell you for free is private institutions at times, especially the charitable ones, they tend to keep their promises. Yeah, but we all know the government that we have.
Is there any gas depot around where you live right now?
Right now, there's a rumor of one, but we confirmed that there wasn't actually, it wasn't actually a gas depot.
Okay.
So I think people are just speculating, but it's not there. Because even the one that exploded is being manned by the police. So there's no way that they can get back to operation.
Okay.
Robert, I want to talk about disaster response, because that's what then it's the highlight here. And disaster response happens from seconds before disaster, or days before disaster, or months before disaster. You know, like looking and seeing this is likely to cause a disaster and what happens to mitigate disasters. And then in the event a disaster happens, what's the response like? And is there a structure? From your own experience, obviously, there was no such structure, right? In terms of, so if a disaster happens here, do we even have a number to call? You know, you're watching the movie, call 911, call 911. Who do we call? Where do we call? People know to call the Kenya Red Cross.
Yes.
But the Kenya Red Cross is an independent entity. Yes, it is supported by government by law, but it's not heavily taxpayer funded. Who do we call? What number do you call? And once the first responders arrive, who are they? What are they supposed to do? Is there any training that happens before a disaster on what to do in the event of a disaster? In that moment of disaster, who comes and who takes charge? Is it the local police boss? Is it the local disaster boss? Is it the Nairobi County Disaster Department? I mean, who is in charge? Is it a national government? Is it the governor? Is it the deputy president or the president? Is it the minister for interior? All these questions are questions that you ask yourself when you see such things happening. Every disaster, because you see sort of like disjointed coordination until it falls into place, and we have established like a structure here. So Janet is the boss, so everybody refer to Janet, and then a senior military person comes in and he is a brigadier general, and so now this OCPT, who's just an assistant IG of police, now has to, do they defer to the, you know...
They wing it when they're on location.
They really do. From all those years, and now talking to the people, and I'm sure because you're somebody who is an information person, you have dug deep and to find out what happens. Is there a structure of disaster response and management in Kenya?
Thank you for that question, because I think I understand what disaster recovery is, given that in our field we normally have disaster recovery plan, especially if you've done these certifications to do with CISA, and it's normally a well-structured plan that if we were having such a plan, we wouldn't be like maybe caught in between on what to do, what not to do, who to call, who not to call. So, and on that fateful day, if I can use this as an example, do you know, I was amazed from the information I got after I was taken to the hospital. Do you know the first ambulances to get there? This will have to give it to them. 5 ambulances, they were from the county government.
Right.
Okay.
5, but and that also makes me think that, you know, these officers that you keep blaming, at times there are people who are working there. So it also depends on the competence of the person working there. Because like at that time, the chief officer for health was a very competent person. He's been moved to another department. I don't know whether you know, but I cannot mention his name. But he's been moved to another department, and you actually see the kind of thing that he normally also do on media, because that is what it was courtesy of him. Because even he presented himself that night at the venue. That night, he didn't wait for morning to come so as to come. He came there, and after the ambulances were there, he was also there, and he helped a great deal. For like maybe what to do, you know, like some of us were there. Yes, we were trying to assist with the little knowledge that I have. Yes, I've been trained as a first aider. No, I thought that was what I was going to offer there. Right. I didn't know the dangers. But now, for you to tell me that maybe the police were there to actually also help us. Some of them tried, because like the lady was badly injured and was brought to the hospital that I was in. That lady was brought in by policemen, and even those policemen sustained bans. You know, that's why I'm saying these things narrow down to the individuals, the humans. Because if it was not the competence of the police, maybe they could have said that this is not part of what we do, or rather just organize how people will be taken there. But some of them were taking people to hospital. So I can actually say, still, that is not part of the plan. You see, these are the things that they're just doing out of their own volition. It's not something that is well structured somewhere. So we don't have a plan. I don't think we have a plan. I'll not like to speak about this, but you all know there was this time the qualification of the fire department at the county was highlighted, and you saw the qualifications. You see, it's not bad to maybe do something that maybe you're not qualified for, but trust me, you have to put in a little more effort, given that you are not trained in it at the first place.
Yeah, I think
you don't have a plan.
It's okay for you to be, you know, a trained systems engineer, and then you go into the disaster management. But then before you go in there, what kind of training are you going through? Because it's about just training. Yes. How do we build your competences to handle disasters and emergencies? And do we know whether counties have that? Not just Nairobi, all counties have that. Is there any SOP at the national level that guides this? Because if those are not there, that's why we'll see that a fire will happen at a school in Indarasha, and it's not clear who's responding. That another school will collapse somewhere in Dagoretti, and it's not clear who's responding. A building will collapse in any part of Nairobi, and it's not really clear who is supposed to respond and what they're supposed to do. Right. And when it becomes a bigger issue now, that's when you start bringing in, okay, so this is in the Indian Ocean, we have the Navy, and it's about diving. Do the Navy divers, we can bring the Navy divers. So this is in a dam in Ruiru. Local divers. This is in Kware, and it's a landfill. It's local volunteers who come in and they're sorting out these issues. These are the questions that we must keep asking ourselves, because for us to fix this country, we have to start from a point of information and knowledge. Agreed. And then we push and question and say, this we must have, and this is what we need.
And what's even more shocking is that remember, 20% of tragedies are fires, and it's decades and decades and decades. In fact, somebody here asks, is it that the government is unable to assist with such disasters when they happen, or is it just not important to them? That is what Sarah Ndungo has asked.
A really good question. We wanted to hear from the Chief Officer of Disaster Management in Nairobi City. Jonte, I don't know if we're able to get him on call. That's Bran Simiu, because he wanted to speak to it. And I think if there's any person to ask, and I see someone saying, let's ask the right questions. Yes, we are asking the right questions. Bran, good morning. The Chief Officer of Disaster Management. Bram, good morning.
Morning, can you hear you?
All right, we can hear your TV in the background. If you could turn it down just a little bit.
Good morning, Miriam.
Good morning. It's nice to have you on.
Good morning, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We want to discuss our disaster management as a county, not the country, just Nairobi City, and the fact that we have, good intentions as always, of course, things in place, but the disaster management itself always seems to take off a little bit slower than is needed, and then we need to plug in holes with the Kenya Red Cross, with volunteers, with volunteer organizations, etc. But perhaps what is Nairobi's fire emergency response like, whether it's whether it's Embakasi or Gikomba or a residential home, what is our fire emergency response system?
Okay, thank you, Mariam, and Thanks for having me on the show. Allow me perhaps to just start by first extending our sincere condolences to the Nation Media Group and the entire Aga Khan fraternity for the loss of His Highness Aga Khan. Secondly, I'd wish to also celebrate, unsung heroes like Robert Idewa, who ordinarily the first responders on the scenes of disasters such as the Muradi one. And in many ways, they're a key cog in terms of our initial first responding protocols. But just to also say that as a county government, Muradi was certainly one of those cases that stretched our capacities, to the limit. As a county government, we have put in place very, comprehensive protocols to help us deal with such incidents, such as the Muradi fire. And on that material night, I am glad that, Robert appreciates that our emergency vehicles were on the scene within minutes of the incident. Typically, it's the fire engines that get there first. The ambulances are backup. And I can confirm that within 10 to 15 minutes of us receiving the distress call, we had fire engines from, the nearest points were the Embakasi, the Enterprise Road Fire Station and the Kangundo Road Fire Station. We had our fire engines on the scene within minutes. And we, of course, given the intensity of the fire, we called upon additional support from the Kenya Airports Authority and from the nearby Jomo Kenyatta Airport. We also got the military involved. We, like I mentioned, this was a very, very intense fire, and we therefore needed to put all hands on deck. We were able to call upon other emergency responders. We were able to set up, after containing the fire, we were able to then set up the emergency desk where all the key actors, including the Red Cross, ourselves, the military, the police, the national government, were quickly mobilized and activated to be able to, sort of just take control of the situation. This, I think, was a testimony of what we can do as first responders working in unison. But also just to bring to the attention of Nairobians that there are certain things that professional firefighters do when you're called upon from, to such an incident. And one of the things we did was to what you call surrounding the fire to prevent it from spreading, so that we concentrate on fighting it. There was a nearby, I think, a block of apartments known as, Blue Sky Apartments and the Nyayo High-Rise, which were also under threat. So the immediate thing was to deploy these engines strategically to cut off the fire from spreading. And that's why some people may say that the engines took long to arrive. But once the team gets to the ground, they quickly assess and then come up with a strategy to be able to, deal with that particular fire. And it's for that reason that people on one end may not know that there's an engine operating on the other end of the fire. This was a very, very expansive fire, as you correctly observed. Cylinders were being hurled, quite some distances, including the textile factory, which was about 300 fires away. So we had secondary incidents to deal with. But I was on the scene for more than 38 hours. We had the protocols which were to contain the fire on that material night. And then we also then had to then deal with the recovery bit. And one of the things that the county government did was to establish a holding center just next to the police station. And we hosted close to, 600 families, or 600 individuals, giving them shelter, which was the immediate requirement. We also provided them with food and non-food support. We also appreciated the support we got from other, actors, including political leaders. But at that point in time, I think the priority was to try and restore the dignity of those that had been affected. And so we were able to ensure that within the next, I think for about 5 or 6 days, we gave shelter, particularly to the women and children, and we ensured that they got adequate supplies of water, food, and so on. But again, just to put things into perspective, fire outbreaks are a big problem in Nairobi. Last year alone, we had more than 800 fires, mostly in the low-income settlements. We have areas that are fire prone, and many of these fires are caused by illegal electricity connections. They're caused by unattended cooking appliances, sometimes domestic disputes, business rivalry, and so on and so forth. So what we've done is to try and, as a strategy as a county government, is to approach disaster management comprehensively. We have now a fully fledged department known as Disaster Risk Reduction, other than the Fire and Rescue Services, which is the response agency that is charged with the responsibility of containing and rescuing those affected and protecting life and property. So the disaster risk reduction is working towards building community resilience. And I think when I was listening to Robert, one of the things that he alluded to was that in the aftermath of any emergency of this nature, there's always panic. And what we try to do is to try and build community resilience, to try and work with the community to establish even fast responders who are able to help in terms of activating protocols such as just particularly getting the able-bodied to even evacuate the children and maybe the elderly. We break down any closed doors in case there's anybody still trapped inside. We create fire breaks in terms of bringing down structures that lie along the pathway of the fire and so on and so forth. So the disaster risk reduction's mandate is really to try and build community resilience, and that's why we are looking at working with champions such as Robert, so that they know what to do in such instances. We're also working very closely with other partners to work on the recovery and rebuilding. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. I just wanted to interject a quick question. As far as working with champions like Robert, like you've said, should the entire population not be, should we not have the entire population having, basic disaster management skills, basic first aid skills, etc., how to deal with a fire 101 for the entire county, as opposed to a champion in an estate and, one or two ambassadors?
Yeah. Well, indeed, the disaster risk reduction has a very clear program to build community awareness and sensitization. And we are working closely with other actors such as the Red Cross to build what you're calling community volunteer teams. We have a program where we are sensitizing, particularly institutions, schools, even from the early childhood stage. Our firefighters and our disaster management officers last year held about 100 such training sessions in different schools in Nairobi County, just to be able to build awareness, particularly in schools and in the communities. It's an ongoing exercise. We'll intensify it, we'll expand it, because we appreciate that as a county government or as the first responders, what is critical is the initial response immediately after an incident. And normally it's the community that is on the scene, and there are certain protocols that we'd wish them to, and certain skills that we'd wish them to have pending the arrival of the first responder. So I agree with you that it's the entire community that needs to be empowered in terms of the knowledge and the skills and the awareness to be able to know what to do.
Bram,
I've just given an example. Just before I come in, sorry?
I just want to come in there and move it a little bit. It's commendable that there is a department now called the Disaster Risk Reduction Department. You're the chief officer for disaster management. So the county is already thinking and seeing disaster as a big issue. So when you have a department that is dealing with disasters, 800 fires in a year, those are many fires and those are many people affected. But I wonder, structurally, is there, what is guiding this department? Is there a strategy, a policy paper, one that then you can use to go to the county assembly and say, allocate as a higher budget so that we can get more people, more resources into it, and so on and so forth? Just as a start to that question, how many people has Nairobi County hired as disaster response personnel of all cadres?
Okay, thank you, Eric. Yeah, the department currently has close to about 400 personnel, 300 of whom are trained firefighters. And just to bring to, maybe just for the comfort of Robert, to assure him that it doesn't matter your background. Once you joined the department, you're then taken through an intensive 6-month training course to become a firefighter. just like policemen, just like military officers. You know, you cannot begrudge a firefighter for having any other basic degree. So at the moment, you have those 300 firefighters. We have about 100 disaster management officers. The last cohort of firefighters actually passed. We had the pass-out parade about a couple of weeks ago, and these have been deployed. Now, you asked a very good question in terms of what is the legal and regulatory framework. It is true that as a country, that has been a gap. We need to have a proper framework that governs three things. Number one, the structure of disaster management in terms of how it looks like. Secondly, the coordination and control and communication between the different stakeholders. You correctly observed that Muradi was one such test case. Once the fire department gets there, the military gets there, the police gets there, who is the incident commander? What are the protocols that are then initiated? We trust that, you know, we believe that having a proper legal and regulatory framework that outlines this is critical. But the most important component is disaster financing. How are we able to ring-fence adequate funds that can allow particularly the government to be able to deal with the matters, emergency response and disaster management effectively and efficiently. Having a proper legal framework would really, really go a long way in helping us do that. And for the county government of Nairobi, we have a bill that is just about ready. This will be presented to the county assembly within the next month or so. And hopefully what you're looking at is establishing what you call the Nairobi County Disaster Management Authority, which His Excellency Governor Sakaja has actually pronounced himself on. That way, I think we'll be able to strengthen our capabilities as a county government to be able to handle disaster through all the phases: mitigation, prevention, response, as well as recovery and repair.
Thank you. Bram, I think this is a good point to allow Robert. I wanted to know if you have any reactions to what has been said, and just allow him to engage you and ask you any questions based on what you shared with us this morning.
Okay. Bwana Bram Simiu, thank you very much. I don't know whether you were watching the show from the start, because there was this person who was talking about how the fire engines came and at what time they came, the delay. That is somebody who was there. I don't know whether you were there and what time you got there, but I don't want us to have a back and forth on that. And also, the fact you have this disaster management plan, or rather disaster recovery plan, because you know once you have this. By now, there's this question that you asked by Latif, whether you have this champion, this sort of champion, I don't know whether it was Latif for you, whether you have a champion in every area, let alone every estate, in every area. The same way, like in this workplace, you normally have...
There's always a first aid champion.
Exactly, a first aid champion, a fire marshal, sort of, somebody who's been trained, because to me, regardless of the background, as long as you have the training, and even if you have that plan in place, do you know, having a plan is one thing, and also now getting to understand how that plan works. You at your position where you're seated, you might be very good at it. You've understood it. Maybe you are part of coming up with it. But your team, how often does your team get trained on it? What is their mastery to that when it comes to that plan? Because that may be where you're failing. Because to me, I was saying, and I strongly believe it narrows down to individuals. So the problem could be because you're already even given wrong information that it's the fire engines which were there first. And also, those of us who are here, they can even maybe call in to approve. They know that it's the ambulances which got first. And that is not what should happen, you get. So you had an issue maybe from the start that you could not be able to send the engines. And also, one thing you've not mentioned, you know that most of some of the engines were not, I don't know whether to say well equipped, or they didn't have the necessary things that they should have. Because from one of the states there, your guys were drawing water from there. That is it.
Brown, you can respond.
Okay, yes, thank you, Robert. Let me say that that fire broke out, I think, a little after 11 o'clock. And I know because I have the records from the occurrence book that the first engines were on the scene within 15-20 minutes. What I mentioned is that this fire was quite expansive. So you'd be in one part, I don't know which part of Embakasi Muradi you were, but this fire was quite expansive. And you know, engines could be on the scene in any location. They were not everywhere at once. And like I mentioned, the immediate priority is to surround the fire. It is for that reason that, for example, that fire did not spread to Nyayo or Embakasi, or that Blue Sky building was not consumed, because what trained firefighters do is to what they call surrounding the fire. And that's what they do. I don't want to go into the technicalities, but just to assure you that we were on the scene in good time. The fire was an intense one, as you also correctly observed. It was spreading over a wide expanse. So it was not possible to be able to see a bird's eye view of what's happening over and above where the location you are in. Secondly, let me say that we have a very well-trained fire department, perhaps one of the best trained in Kenya on the region. I will always appreciate and acknowledge the work that my firefighters do. Some of them deal with up to 7 fires in one night. It's just that perhaps we are just like doctors. Our success stories may not be celebrated. What will be celebrated is that one case that perhaps may on the surface look like it didn't work out. But just to assure you that I was on the scene by midnight. I was on the scene for 38 hours. And I was part and parcel of the team that was actively, containing the fire and fighting the fire with my colleagues, with the support of the military, the other private firefighters, etc. So, in a sense, I didn't see. Of course, ambulances on their own cannot put out a fire. Ambulances normally, as a matter of practice, actually stay on the periphery to evacuate those that are injured and those that the firefighters as well as the victims.
Okay,
but just to assure you,
Bram,
yes.
Respond down to the other issues that he's raised in terms of like now the structure and making sure that you have champions in every neighborhood. How soon should we get to that level?
I just mentioned to, and I mentioned to Robert that of course Nairobi is also quite expansive. We know that Nairobi County has about 6-7 million people during the day and 5 million at night. So the fact that we've set up the disaster risk reduction unit over the past 1 year, this is work in progress. We are expanding. We've set up disaster management officers in each sub-county. We are looking at cascading them down to the ward level so that they, working together with the Red Cross and other actors, are able to form and strengthen these community response teams. Also like I mentioned, we have this program in the schools and even in other workplaces that we are rolling out, where we will be able to identify fire marshals, train them, so that they can be able to be, the on the ground sort of champions to deal with matters disaster management. Going forward, is there room for improvement? Certainly. But I also mentioned at the outset that one of the things that we need to fix is disaster financing, because all these things require significant amounts of budgets and resources. So we are looking at how that can be marshaled and that can be able to be put to better use to be able to respond to disaster management. But also to mention that we also need to mainstream disaster management in every aspect of our planning, be it construction of our roads, houses, be it in the workplaces, so that disaster doesn't become an afterthought. Even every institution as a budget ideally should have resources put aside to support matters of emergency response and disaster management, and not just externalize it as something that is to be done by others. It has to be part and parcel of our DNA in our everyday planning, in our everyday operations.
Bram, we'll let you go shortly just so that we can come back and continue with Robert. But I know you've talked about the fact that things will take time. You've mentioned that. But I just want to speak to, if tonight, God forbid, a fire breaks out somewhere, similar nature to what happened in Radi, people wouldn't know where to start, right? So very briefly, Ram, how can you speak to the 1, 2, 3 steps to take, whether it's a number to call, whether it's something to keep in mind? Very briefly, because I know we don't have a lot of time, although this is a critical conversation. It's just that, yes, you've explained some of the gaps, you've explained the policies needed, the financing. A fire will break out soon, and it happens today. What will be different from what happened a year ago? And so what are the 1, 2, 3 things that you can guarantee and that people can keep in mind as you wind up?
Yeah. Yeah, Janet, thank you for raising that issue because, again, part of what governs the response time would be the speed with which we are able to get the information to the emergency response control room. At the moment, at the county, we have a toll-free number 1508, which, the members of the public can be able to call in the event that, there's an emergency. This is combines both the health department as well as the fire department will be able to get our information.
Say the number again, Robert Brown. What's the number again?
1508.
1508.
1508 is the toll-free number.
Is it just for fire emergencies or all emergencies?
This is for all emergencies in the county. But for the fire department, allow me to just share the 4 lines that would go straight to the emergency control room. We do have 22 181.
Mm-hmm.
Then 22 182.
Yeah.
22 183.
Mm-hmm.
And 2344 These are landlines. They're preceded by 020. But this goes straight to our control room and is the quickest way to activate response. I know that a lot of times, normally what happens, people perhaps 999 or call, the local leader. So you'd find that there's a downtime of almost 15 to 20 minutes before the information gets to the emergency response units.
Thank you very much, Bram Simiu, the Chief Officer for Disaster Management in Nairobi City County. We'll be displaying some of these numbers that he said. There's a toll-free number for Nairobi in case of an emergency, 1508. So you just take that and call, and it should be received by somebody. We'll try that, actually, Winnie. We can just see if it's working. 2222 181 or 182 or 183. That's straight to the fire department. 2344 599. Is also another number to the fire department. We'll be displaying those numbers on the screen, so you can just take them up. But you'll be listening to us on NFM as well. Those numbers again: 2222 181 182 183, and the toll-free number 1508. We'll also post them on our social media. We'll see if they're working. Bram, Chief Officer, asante sana for calling us this morning and for also shedding light and adding weight to this conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, helpful insights there. Also, just some feedback coming in. Regina Kithuka, as a caregiver directly impacted by having loved ones injured, I wish to emphasize the importance of psychosocial support, even for caregivers. You've talked about your wonderful wife, so I'm sure for the caregiving is also quite a burden, and I'm sure a lot of your other colleagues who are affected, it can't be easy on their loved ones.
Actually, just before you even go to the next one, Robert, do the caregivers get psychological support?
That is something we're talking about today with that Regina Kithuka, my wife.
Yeah.
So now, that is something that I think we normally have overlooked or something.
We overlooked.
Because you're like maybe the one who's injured, and I'd like to say that I think it's easier when it comes to psychosocial support. It's easier for you, the person who's been injured, than the person who's taking care of the injured person. Because them, they don't have those injuries. Why do they have to undergo this exercise that they have to do it like for her, she used to do it like very diligently. Every morning you're there, you're coming to actually see me. To at times she asks. There's no day that she ever missed. Right. But you can actually imagine because I think I've noted I noted a difference, and I don't know why. I don't know. Okay, maybe my bad. She didn't go for counseling as well, but I think it's something that we should also consider to offer to the caregivers.
Said she's in that profession.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is probably why.
Yeah,
Regina, think about it. But thank you very much, Regina.
Doctors don't like to go to the hospital.
No, they can figure it out themselves. But kudos to her. She sounds like a wonderful person. And this speaks to your character, I think, Robert. There was somebody here, Angela Srukwaro. I don't know if the name is familiar because he says, I work with Robert. Listening to his ordeal one-on-one is always sad and encouraging at the same time. He's an excellent person and challenges us to become better people, and I hope they'll get justice. Is that name familiar to you?
Yeah. A colleague.
That's a colleague of yours.
We were employed on the same year.
Wow.
Okay.
No, there's so much love. And again, Regina says, shout out to you. You're the kindest, most courageous man I know. This ordeal has been physically and emotionally draining on you. I have witnessed it firsthand, but you've got this. And you absolutely do have this. I know there's a community that you've built with others who were affected by this fire, whether they were injured, whether they lost a loved one. And what does this community look like? Who is in it? And then how do you help each other get through this? Is it a meeting? Is it a Zoom call every once in a while? Is it a WhatsApp call? Is it an update? How do you check in on one another and provide that community?
Because in that community that you have, actually, our major platform is the WhatsApp. So you have this WhatsApp group that we keep on checking on people, and it's normally open. And if you're undergoing something and you text there in the middle of the night, there'll be someone to respond. I don't know why, but people.
There's always someone.
Yeah, there's always someone who's just awake. They'll even go ahead and give you a call, ask you also what to do, because maybe it's something that they had undergone already, and also get to assist you. We were even at times, this is part of self-medication that doctors want to hear, but giving you painkillers. If you're so much in pain and you don't have any painkillers, they'll give you painkillers. That's not a good thing to do, but at times you have to do it because you cannot sleep, you're itching, there's a lot of pain, so they go to an extent of giving you painkillers. Right. And again, I'll say that we are very privileged to be in a very close community whereby even guys who moved out were still part of that, because we had to start with us before reaching out to actually outside the state. But we still have a lot to do. I'll actually have to admit that we still have a lot to do.
Psychosocial, physical. And I know when we're talking over the phone, you also spoke about the adjustments you've had to make, because that's not something people think about. We know you spent a month in the hospital. We know you had to do physio after. You know you had to get skin grafts. All of that expensive, taxing, physically draining. You've been under the knife. But you still can't live life the same way. What are some of the things that have changed as a result? You can't work in the Northeast. Why in hot places? Why is that?
My hope is, I'm a Catholic, and this is the Jubilee of hope. So my hope is that I'll really get to where I was before, because I don't on this. I just don't want to imagine of maybe the opposite, because I really need to get back to where I was, and I hope I'll get there. That's why I'm actually making sure that I'm going. I was afraid of being put like under full anesthesia, but I had to do it because I really want to get back to the playful dad that I was. I need to
you
be...
You want your life
exactly,
back.
Exactly. Even if I'll not get 100%, but at least I try to get closer to where we were before. And the same thing is what actually, if you allow me speak for also part of the members in the group that we have, you can even imagine for ladies who at the calf region is burnt, you cannot dress the way you used to dress. You have to even have a change of your wardrobe. I was used to having short sleeves. Right. Now I have to wear long sleeves, and even that long sleeve, you're told that it has to be made of 100% cotton so that it doesn't irritate the scars. It's very tricky. Financial drain. There are these things. I think I carried one with me, but these things called pressure garments. Or other compression garments that you have to keep on wearing every other time. A lady's wearing it up to this place, especially if you are burnt on this on the hand. You have to wear it every other time.
No matter how hot, how cold.
No matter how hot. And there's another irritating stuff that you have to put inside. It's called a silicone sheet. Very expensive stuff. A 10x8 goes for about 5,000 shillings. You have to put I think for me, I have to put almost 4 here.
How do you change that silicone sheet?
Very good question. Imagine it's supposed to be changed after 2 weeks.
That is
not just 5,000 according to the coverage of the band.
So for you, it's 20,000 shillings.
About 20,000. We've not spoken of this other side, this other hand. Even others will have to put it on the legs. So you can imagine you have to have those stuff. And imagine you're in an informal settlement. I don't want to look down upon them in any way. You're struggling to even survive after the incident. And you're here, you cannot, if you're told about this, because within the set, we have a friend of mine who is still looking for employment, a graduate. He has a very big scar, but he keeps on putting that stuff on, but he'll have to overwear it because he doesn't have income to keep on changing it. And even if you have income, trust me, you cannot afford you cannot afford 40K per month. Or even if you are to stretch it to a month, you cannot afford 20,000 per month on something that you'll just have to dispose.
I wanted to ask you what you tell your children or what they've asked you about this incident and how it's changed your relationship.
I have this talkative son. So just maybe the dad. So for them, at times you'll find me sitting.
Father like son, yeah.
You'll find me sitting at the sitting room. And then, especially when I used to be in a lot of pain, you know, you don't want your children to see you crying. You think that already they're having an emotional torture, sort of, because even the teachers were calling, like asking, your son is not okay, call me, what happened? That is even how some of them came to know of what had happened. So I'll walk straight to the bedroom to at least go lock myself there. But you'll find them following me, knocking at the door and asking, Dad, you know you're not feeling okay, but we'll pray for you. You see, we'll pray for you. Another question that maybe they ask, he loves football. My firstborn son, Aiden, loves football. So you'll find him asking, Dad, will we be able to play football again now that even standing is a problem?
Robert, let's take a break, and we thank you for sharing this conversation with us. And as we're taking this break, let's also look at the feedback. There's a lot of feedback, and we encourage you, please, fixers, the community of fixers that's joining us every day on Facebook. Look at what they're saying on Facebook. Very many comments coming in, and we appreciate you and we acknowledge you. We are also streaming on X, and this is all the comments that are coming in. This is YouTube. Look at all the comments. So we want to try this number, but we'll try these numbers. So let's first take this quick break. We'll try the numbers, and then we take a couple of calls so people can talk to you directly. This is Fixing the Nation, one conversation at a time. Lest we forget, we had a fire disaster in Mradi in Embakasi last year. Those people, like Robert and many others, are still going through rehabilitative treatment. They are still spending a lot of money. What support are they getting? Lest we forget, we still run a risk of another disaster, even right now. Back shortly. Fixing the Nation, one conversation at a time, reminding ourselves that we do not have the memory of a goldfish, but lest we forget, a fire happened in Mradi and Embakasi last year, and people such as Robert, who's our guest this morning, and many others are still reeling through the effects of that and going through it, and we shall never forget. And that's what this show will be doing. Every week, we'll be having a Lest We Forget conversation on things that have happened. Many of our community members on YouTube and X and Facebook are sending their comments.
Some of them are even sending their own experiences. Sylvia Shivanda, I personally lost a brother during that Embakasi tragedy, and so far nothing has been done to us in terms of compensation, as it was claimed. Only the area MCA and MP stood with us during that time. Condolences to you, Sylvia, and I think it's also something that Robert has spoken to extensively.
Very true. Shedzwan is also just saying, imagine going out of your way to help and then end up being a victim. Very sad. I'm sorry to hear your experience, Robert. It can't have been easy, but thank you for telling your story. And I reiterate that so much. Joan Melly is saying the same. My brother, my friend, you have fought this. As I always tell you, you are a strong man. I think people are just sending love, sending appreciation, and for sharing as well, because every time you share, you have to live through it again. And I know that's not easy. And that's why we were so keen even on the psychosocial aspect of it, and even for your caregivers as well. When these disaster response lines, we'd like to give them a try to also see, like, genuinely, can we get in touch? Would it take 10, 15 minutes?
Yeah, if we're just even posting the numbers now, and well, I guess you can pick this screen and just post it on air. The toll-free number is 1508. This is the toll-free number that you call. This number, 1508. It goes straight to emergency services, and you can get either the fire department or any health emergency. This will sort you out. And then these other numbers go straight to the Nairobi Fire Department. The 2222181 or 2222182 or 2222183 or 2344599. Of course, you're calling, it's a landline, so you start with 0000. How many zeros?
You start with 020.
020.
Yes.
So it's 020, and then you go in the 2222 181 or 182 183 599. Our producer Wageshi is going to try and call any of these numbers. Which one are you trying, Wageshi?
All right.
So on the landline, so Jonte, the director, is saying he's trying on his personal phone. It's been picked, and this is the toll-free number, Jonte. This 22181. This one is being picked, and the others 182, 183, 599.
And the 1508. Okay.
Okay, from a landline. All right. So from a mobile, you got through to someone on 020-2222-181. All right. Thank you so much. It's good to know that there's at least a number we can call. I think, again, knowing public awareness that this is a number that's saved in my phone in case of any emergency. Also having these other subsequent lines picked as well. Having a unified disaster response system so that this is for fire, but sometimes you have a medical emergency, you have another type of emergency, and you don't always have the bandwidth to be like, this was the number for fire, this was the number for ambulance, this was the number for, you know, which is why, like you said, 911 is because they got that one number, and from there you figure out, is it fire, is it an ambulance that you need, is it
they patch you through to the relevant.
And it doesn't matter which part of the United States of America you are in.
Right.
It's the same number, 911. And we need to get to that. And that's why we need a national authority that coordinates disaster management. They will manage such, they'll manage the call centers, they'll manage the response and calling out all the others. Robert, we want to thank you very much for joining us today. Robert Idewa, final words on behalf of your community, and you said that you're many and you've come together. What would you tell the government of the Republic of Kenya today?
I said you had looked at what I was expecting to be answered, to be asked. So I start with the government and then to my Mradi victims, victims.
Yes.
So to the government, I'd like to call on you, the civil servant, whichever name you call yourself, but you're working for us. Kindly, every other day that you wake up going to that office, just ask yourself, are you going to serve the Kenyans diligently? Because you really need to do that. Everyone has to do their job. And as we have it in this show, that imagine if everyone does his part, trust me, we will not be having such incidences. Because I don't want to be a prophet of doom, but imagine we will be having such an incident very soon, because even after the explosion, we still had another tanker catching fire along the road. The other one at Ngara, similar, almost similar, only that people didn't die. So kindly, just do your job. You're there, you're blessed with that job. Kindly just do it. If you can't, a lot of people are looking for work out here, because the government is not a person. The government is you, the civil servant.
Thank you.
To the community?
And to the community, my fellow Mradi victims, I would like to say sorry to those who lost their lives. Maybe to the next of kin, you're listening to this. Sorry, but today we are here, and this is the start. This makes a start of our road to justice. We are going to get justice, and with justice, we're also going to get the compensation that we deserve. Especially those people who lost their businesses, those people who lost their properties, personal properties, those people who lost their lives, those people who were affected and our lives changed completely and we are living through them, we are struggling to live through them. I want to promise you that the seed that you're planting here today is going to sprout forth to become a perennial plant that will keep on recurring every other year until it gets to the ears of the government.
That's powerful. Thank you. Thank you for your courage and kindness, and praying for your full healing. Thank you so much for sharing your truth with us today.
Thank you for having me here.
May you get your life back as you wish. Thank you very much. Keep it here. More conversations coming up. In the next hour, we're going to shift it out a little bit. If you were arrested today, wherever you are, by a police officer, and you're told, una randa, or java socks, or whatever, or you actually had done something and you're taken to a police station, what do you know? Do you know your rights? What else? What happens thereafter? If you're taken to court, what happens to you? Do you know your right? Do you know how you engage with the judicial system? That's the conversation we'll be having with an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, Julie Madheka, who is program manager at the International Commission of Jurists Kenya chapter. This is Fixing the Nation, one conversation at a time. Do not dare go